Before getting started, I just want to say thank you to Bartsformers for becoming a new Patreon member. That is awesome. Thank you for supporting this silly little thing that I do. Realistically speaking, this was probably inevitable. Today, I'm taking a look at Miniforce Legacy Edition Triga. This is the new modern, it was modern at the time back then, but like the new modern 2026 version of Miniforce Triga, which I did look at that original figure a few years back. I'm going to try to remember to include the link and maybe down in the description as well. We'll see. But yes, I did look at that figure, and it's a neat figure that had certain drawbacks that were annoying enough for me that I never hung on to it, even though I did some customization work on mine at one point. I like the concept behind it. It's just the implementation. I didn't like the gorilla arms, and like the core figure for the alt mode didn't really stand very well at all because of some weird design stuff going on. But anyway, this version definitely better in pretty much every way, with a couple of very small, I would argue insignificant, but still nitpicks that I will get into when we get into the alt mode, let's say, and possibly slightly before that. But for now, this is the updated Triga that we have in 2026, and it looks fantastic. The proportions are great. The coloring is... Honestly, I don't mind the brighter colors of the original, and I kind of feel like the darker colors that they used here bring it into kind of that we're trying to be more serious thing, and it's like it's children's toy. It's fine. Like the darker tones don't bother me. I just feel like it wasn't a necessary change. That said, the colors here are nice. I mean, it's basically the same colors that the original had, just, darker, with the blue and red and white and black accents, some gold here and there. It is kind of neat, though, that the blue, it's hard to see from here, but we'll see more in close-up shots, that it's got kind of like a metallic-y finish to it, which looks kind of slick. The red, too, it's like a little shiny. I don't know if it's metallic per se, but it kind of seems in the same vein. It might just be easier to see in the blue. It's very cool, and the articulation is way better than the original figure. But then you have to deal with things like parts forming, which, I'll get into it with the transformation, but I feel like the parts forming has a kind of justifiable sense behind it. And there's one particular thing I'm definitely going to be harping about when we get to it that I feel like is a completely unnecessary addition. But right now, just look at this thing. This is very cool, very super robot proportions. It's very in line with, say, like Gao Gaigar, like cartoon style Gao Gaigar, not like the DX toy where you just have this overly angular animal crest in the center of the chest there, and like the big legs and like slightly tapering up body, the cinched waist, the tinier head. It's just the slick super robot proportions really work for this guy. And it's a very, very cool design. And he has his weapons on him and accessories, which we will again talk about in a sec, but like all the way around looks good. There's even a fair bit of paint. Even on like the butt flaps, there's paint. So yeah, they definitely spent, like the backs of the heels even. These aren't, like you don't see these in the alt mode, so they didn't need to paint these, but they definitely painted them. And like the side of the heel, there's just a lot of little details all over this thing. And it's very, very nicely done. I'm going to do size comparisons actually first, because once I start talking about accessories, I'm going to be taking some things off, and it doesn't affect the size, but I feel like, I don't know, maybe you all are going to want to see Triga fully kitted out compared to a bunch of other figures. So, he's big. He is definitely bigger than the original figure from what I recall. I'm sure there are videos that actually show a direct comparison between the two out there. Unfortunately, I do not have that original figure anymore, so I can't show you exactly how they measure up, but compared to Tobop the Wild Chief and Ova Prime, who is, as a reminder, a stand-in for like your kind of standard current deluxe class height. He's a pretty big guy, and also much bigger than Metal Cardbot Black Hook. And compared to fellow Miniforce big guy, he is actually pretty much the same height as Rex Kaiser. Okay, now let's de-accessorize him so I can talk about some stuff. So the shield just pegs onto the arm. There are these two little bits in here, inside this like kind of semicircular like cylinder, it's like the indent of a cylinder in there. Those basically clip over these two pegs on the side of the forearm here, so it just goes on like that. And this I'll just put off to the side for now. This clump on this other forearm is the same deal. It's just clips in. There's divots in here. Something to note though, when clipping this on, this panel rotates. So what you want to do is you want to make sure you push down here, because if this is up at all, like this will rotate pretty easily. So make sure you push this down, like brace this when you go to clip this on, otherwise it might not go on easily. So take this off, and here he's got his big sword lance thing, which actually, I'm gonna say real quick, for the sword lance thing, you can bend it down and it becomes like a big rifle cannon thing. And if you want, you could just pop this out and then it becomes a chunky pistol. The instructions, at least, tend to focus on the lance thing, so that's why it's in lance, and I think it looks pretty cool. So anyway, this just pegs into the palm on either side. There are these two holes on the grip and two pegs on the inside of either palm that will grab onto it. And this is reasonably greebly. It's painted pretty well. I like the metallic blue that they got going here, and it's very reminiscent of that original weapon from the original figure. This thing as an accessory just kind of sucks. I think it's supposed to be a shield buckler thing, and there's like a tiny little, you can't really see it easily, but like a tiny little gun thing here, and that's kind of it. There are ports down here that you don't use for anything that could potentially be viewed as cannons, I guess. And also there are ports up here. Like there are peg holes all over this guy and nothing to actually peg into them. It's like he comes with a couple of accessories that are stored elsewhere that you can kind of use in a couple of spots, but it doesn't seem to be the intended use, and it's weird. Anyway, this goes off to the side, and then he's got these big sweeping wings back here. And yes, that is new. That is not something that the original had, because the wings, combined with this, are an extra accessory that this figure absolutely does not need, and I kind of wish it didn't come with. But anyway, to take this off, I'm going to lift back here, because there's like a peg here that goes down into this darker, this lighter, slightly lighter blue piece. So you kind of lift up, and then you can bring the wing up and out, and it's nice and clicky, I'll give it that. So again, just lift up and then bring that out. And now this unpegs from the back. Whoop. And yeah, this does not peg in any way. This, like, there are these little tabs on either side here that go into these slots on the backpack. So you slot it in, and that keeps it from like shifting around, but it's the pegs back here and primarily also these pegs here that really keep the wings solidified onto the figure. So get rid of that. And this is another thing I don't really like. I can see what looks like stress marks on parts of the hinge there. It doesn't look like it's anything that would actually like break, I don't think, but it just, I don't like that it came with stress marks out of the box. But anyway, this just folds up. And this is Triga without the extra guff. And I think this is plenty cool on its own. He really doesn't need the wings. And like, my other problem with the wings is when you turn it into, because obviously this turns into like a Pteranodon, because you bring the head up, you flip this panel around 180 degrees, you open up the talons, and then this clips over, this right here clips over the bit here in the chest. And then once that's clipped in, the wings swing down and will clip over these little tabs on the side. And that locks everything together and leaves you with this like nifty little like pteranodon robot thing. The blue plastic on this is all like really dark, metallic-y, translucent blue, which is like, it seems sturdy enough, but it's also just kind of alarming to see that much translucent plastic. And like, it looks cool for what it is. It's got some articulation, like the legs can move forward and back, the talons can open and close, as you saw for the transformation. The wings can flap like this and go pretty much all the way around if you want. And then the head, you've got the neck on two different joints, so you can go all the way back if you want. You can crane it forward, you can go down, and it even swivels. Got some pretty decent articulation on this thing for what it is, but like, this is it. It's just like a standalone pteranodon thing that becomes a kind of cool looking wing pack and a really awkward and unnecessary looking buckler. And I just don't think, as cool as this looks, as nicely painted as it is, I just don't think it was a necessary thing to throw in the box, which just adds cost to everything. I don't know. Maybe the reasoning was that they had a certain budget that they had to keep this guy in, and they kind of nailed it with all of this, and they didn't know what else to do. I don't know. But this thing is just so unnecessary. I don't hate it, I just don't understand why, because it doesn't add enough. But anyway, that's enough complaining about the Pteranodon. The other two accessories, as I said, there's the lance, which we already looked at. There's the shield, which looks like a shield with Stegosaurus-style plates on the sides, and also these little diddly finger hand things that I don't understand why they move like this, because they, like, you can't use them, you can't move them this far back and actually use them in anything. And it doesn't look particularly good to do this for the shield. I mean, you can, but it kind of looks better to just have them up like that, so I don't understand why those move. He comes with, much like Rex Kaiser, a coin, and the coin just clips into the shield. That's where it stays. It's where it lives. Come on. Get out. Let go. There we go. It just clips into that little spot, and you've got the Triga side and the other side that looks like whatever. And this is a die cast. It's nice and sturdy and heavy. And now that this portion of the video is done, this is just going to live in here, and it's never coming out because you don't actually have to take it out for anything. It just stays in there. Pretty cool, and again, doesn't really need this. Since I'm all over the place, let's just move on. The head is very reminiscent of the original toy, but just kind of angrier, more angular too. It's similar shape, similar vibe, similar head crest and head design and all that, but like the coloring's really nice. I really like that they added not just the red accents on the side, but this kind of subtle dark blue, which is really hard to notice. I honestly did not even know that was there, that was painted until just now, seeing it under the lights. But like, I kind of like how that ties some of like this color, the blue for the rest of the torso, into here. The mouth plate looks suitably cool, looks kind of sculpted a little bit like a open mouth almost. I know it's not supposed to be that, but like it makes me think of like that, I mean, I guess I'll say it again, kind of like a Gao-Gaigar kind of ornate mouth plate. The metallic blue eyes are nice, and I like too how you've got the black around them that really makes that metallic blue pop. And then the red on the head crest. The head crest is in this gold plastic, and it's this nice kind of crescent moon shape that looks like it's got kind of an edge to it. It's soft plastic. It's not like soft-ish plastic, so you're not gonna, cut anyone with it, but I don't know. I like the shape. I think it's nice. Now, articulation on Triga is Pretty darn nice. So the head is on a ball joint, so you can get side-to-side motion, can look up and down a fair bit, can rotate all the way around. The arms can go around all the way, and it's clicky. You kind of want to be careful because his there's like another joint in here that's not really part of the transformation, that it does tab in, but it doesn't solidly tab in. So like, especially on this side where the swivel is a little bit stronger, you can kind of see that joint moving as I rotate this. So that's just something to be aware of. I find that usually it's fine if you just kind of push down slightly as you rotate, and that keeps this from coming completely unseated, but I don't think it's going to come unseated all the way. The arms do also have outward motion, can go out that far on this joint, but if you disconnect this inner joint, you can go out a little bit further. It of course changes where the rotation on the shoulder is, but you can do it. And I guess if you wanted to, you could also angle the shoulder pad. The bicep does rotate. It's on a very thunky click, but it's 3 clicks between 90-degree increments, which isn't terrible. And you have elbow bend that can go way deep. It clicks up to here and then kind of stops, but it just frictions the rest of the way. I don't really understand that, but it doesn't feel like it's not supposed to do that, if that makes sense. The wrists swivel. If you wanted to, you could use this bit to bring out like a gauntlet spike, I guess, forearm spike. The fingers are also individually articulated. They are just curled, so it's like a static curl, but each one can be curled in separately, so you can get like a slightly more relaxed looking hand if you want. You can curl into a fist, that kind of thing. The waist does actually rotate on a clicky joint, which is cool. You got hip skirts on the front and the side, and for the back you can either hinge the entire butt skirt up or hinge half of the hip skirt back, kind of your choice. The hips go forward to just about 90, back to 90, out to 90. You get a soft click for thigh rotation, and then a slightly under 90-degree knee bend. Again, all clicky, all very clicky. And for the ankles, you do actually get ankle tilt. You can't go outward, but you get a couple of clicks inward, and this little flap will get out of the way. You don't get any forward or backward motion, no rotation, but if you wanted to, you could untransform it a little bit and like bend the toe down. So you could do that. And yeah, it's a much better articulation on this guy than the original. It does not have the gorilla arms, because the original, the only thing you could do is like the arms were like this. So you can only do that inward bend. You couldn't bend the wrists or anything, so I did not like that at all. Now, we already did size comparisons, so it is time for transformation. And this video is going to be obnoxiously long, I can already tell. All right, so whole reason I started in this mode is because this is the mode he comes packaged in. We're going to do the primary mode and then, I guess, secondary mode. So first thing to do is separate the upper body from the lower body. So you want to take the Triceratops head, which does look very cool and is nicely detailed. Just pop that off. It actually tabs in a couple places. There's a clip here that goes on this big bit here, but then there's also this little slot down here that this little tab right here pegs into, and when you clip this in, that basically keeps all of this together, so you don't want to try and pull the upper body off until you remove this. So pop this off, and then while we're here, we're just going to take this hinge and fold that out, and that will stay off to the side. Going to take the upper body, specifically these bits up here and all of this back here, and pull that up to unseat it and disconnect it from the rest of the lower body. So these are the two primary components of Legacy Triga. And what the heck, let's take care of the upper body first. So the big thing that I have, not an issue with, but the big thing that I have the most trouble with when transforming this guy is the forearm connectors. They are very solid. Not necessarily a complaint, but it is something to be aware of, that like popping these off can be kind of tricky. I find the best way to do it is to kind of tilt and wiggle, because like rotating's not going to help. You kind of need to pull either forward or back or to the side and just kind of go at an angle until it pops off, because there you can see the connectors, and it's just easier to kind of leverage it out slightly. So that's one forearm, and then for the other forearm, again, just kind of pop that out. And now what you do with the forearms is you want to ball up the fists, so just get the fingers in as far as possible to make fists, peg these together, take these little bits and flip them forward, and they will stop, and then take these panels and rotate them forward until they click, and they'll be at like an angle. And this just will go off to the side. Now I've got an Astrid on my lap, so this is going to be awkward. Now I'm going to fold the connectors for the forearms up into the shoulders. And also a thing that I neglected to mention, there are these bits back here, these little kind of Triceratops relief sculptures on the backs of the shoulders. These are separate accessories that just untab. There's a slot and tab here, tab and slot here. So those untab, and then you fold them down and they become little blasters. And these are the things that I was saying could kind of be used with like the buckler thing. You could peg them up there if you wanted to. And then it has like guns on it. But I just don't think this looks particularly good, so oh well. But these will just go off to the side as well. And now to finish this up, I'm going to open up this panel back here, pop this entire black panel that the head is sitting on, the entire thing up. And once that's popped up, it actually, there's a peg here that goes into this little hole here. So this comes up, and with the head kind of straightened out, this panel folds up and covers up the face. Then this swings up and slides down into this cavity, and then this panel closes up again and completely hides the head. It's so much better at hiding the head than the original. And then this piece will rotate. You want the screws facing the same side as this whole panel that's hiding the head, the combined mode head. Bring all that down, rotate these, and then you kind of need to, I find it's best to like fold these out so you can straighten out what becomes the toes, and then these can just kind of sit down like that. And then for the last of these very obvious legs, you want to slide this piece up and then fold this black piece down to just kind of add some fancy knee spike detailing to the legs, which is so unnecessary, but I kind of respect it. And then for the rest of all of this, you just need to get the arms straightened out, the smaller arms, and then the fists, which these actually do need to fold in because there's little tabs here that will plug in, or not plug in, but sit into these little like T-shaped slots here. So that helps to lock everything together again. And again, it's much cleaner than the original, but these fold around and will actually click and tab into the forearms. Also can bring down the hip skirts. With all of that done, the last thing to do is fold open this panel so we can pull up the small robot head and then close that back up again. And there is the little core robot guy, who we will look at more in a bit once we've finished with the lower body. So for the lower body, I want to straighten out the feet and the legs and all that, bring all of this down and clip the legs together. The butt skirts, you want to fold them out like this so that you can rotate the entire waist assembly around, or rotate the legs up, however you want to look at it. And these flaps will just go between the legs. And once that's done, you can finish transforming this bit. And this is interesting. What you want to do is you want to push the horn shape thing in. Not like, you don't pull up or push forward, you push it like straight back. And that will unhook, because this is on like a little spring. You can kind of see it moving there. That clips this together. So if you push that in, you can fold this out. This will fold all the way around, and there are these little peg holes. These little peg holes, where's a good angle to show? These little peg holes here that will peg over these pegs on the backs of the side skirts. But actually, before we do that, I forgot, you got to do this. You need to take the outer sides of the thighs and push them forward until they click. Just the sides, but you push those forward, and that gives you the space you need for this to come down and peg into the backs of the hip skirts. So now this is happening and is weird. Next, fold down these treads and then disconnect this panel, and this oblong shaped peg will go into this oblong shaped peg hole in the side skirt. Now it just pegs in. Again, fold down the tread, untab this, bring it around and peg it in. The toes, while I'm back here, those can fold up all the way. And the backs of the heels actually are in, it's like two little doors that just one folds up and covers that, and the other one folds around like that. It's weird. And then these wheels rotate all the way around 180 degrees, and they only go the one way. And that gives you wheels, and then these panels back here, which I always forget to do, you want to open up these panels. You need to open these up. It's not going to work otherwise. So now we've got this kind of mess going on. I'm going to take the shield, fold in the plates, and there's this big chunky tab in the center here, and these two little tabs on the side here. And the big chunky tab will go into this opening here, and the two little side tabs will go into these two little openings on either side of the knee decoration bits. And that just clips in like that. So now we've got this happening. And this is where what I like to do is I just fold up the little arms, because I just think it might hide them slightly better. You can fold up the hip skirts and try to push them in like this, but they don't quite fit, and you can't quite close the hip skirts with them up like that, so that's why I just do that. But I don't think that's part of the instructions. And then to finish this off, we're going to take the forearm clump and the Triceratops head, and folding this tab out has also revealed this big chunky tab here, and the big chunky tab will go into these little slots on the insides where the forearms are pegged together. And you want the Triceratops head kind of facing down. You want these horns down, and you just peg that in like that. And finally, for this portion of it, this whole thing sits in here, and the easiest way to line it up is there are these big chunky pegs on these flaps and these big gaps on the sides here. You want the chunky pegs going into the gaps, and the Triceratops horn kind of goes in here, and the other, like the nose horn goes in here, and the other horns kind of go into these little gaps here, so it all has a place to go. You bring this in, peg that down, make sure that this is down, and once all of this is down, these panels come back in, and there is an angled peg hole here that will peg into, well, actually two angled peg holes on either side that'll go over these pegs here, and then this kind of rectangular flap will go into this little notch here, and that all pegs together like that. And there is this. And to kind of finish things up, the little blaster bits, they just peg into, they can go on either side, but they peg into the back of the core figure, kind of like a, I guess, rocket pack or something. And then the lance, you pop it apart, and it only goes together one way because you notice there's like a keyed, there's like a little slot right here above that peg hole and a little keyed tab there. So that's kind of like, it's only going to go together all the way when you have it lined up right. If it's not lined up right, it's not going to go together all the way. But pop this apart. You want to take this panel here and open this up so that you can fold this handle all the way around and in, and then close that up. And this makes like a big chunky revolver, which is actually kind of neat. And I like how part of this grip is designed to look like the hammer for the revolver when it's folded in like this. That's just neat. And that pegs into the little guy's hand. And then the lance thing, let's see, can you? I haven't actually tried this. Okay, you can peg it into his hand like it's a sword or lance or whatever. But you can also, in kind of, you know, because the original did this, you can open up this little panel here to flip this grip all the way around, and it'll kind of sit in here, and this will slot over the fist. It goes in either fist, it'll work on either one, but this slots over the fist, and then you bring this panel back down and it'll peg into the hole in the fist, and you get the awkward kind of lance fist. And here is the full set in what I guess would be considered the alt modes, and it's pretty cool. I think there have definitely been some visual compromises, but there were visual compromises for the original thing anyway, so I'm not that bothered by it. I've already said everything I need to about this thing, so we're just gonna get that out of here. This is fine. You know, it looks like an angry Goanger style dinosaur face. If you got the eyes, some like a angry or perhaps sinister grinning teeth. And clearly you've got the two horns up here and the one horn here, so it's like a angry Triceratops, I guess. But like as a car, tank car, half track with the tracks in front rather than behind. It's an odd thing, but I don't hate it. That being said, I do miss the Triceratops mount. Because the original, it was the little core robot and then a Triceratops, just a four-legged Triceratops that he would ride, and this is just like a car. So it's a little bit disappointing that you don't get the Triceratops like you used to, but I'm sure there's a reason they decided to make it a car. For what it is, this is fine. I appreciate that you can at least make out like the shape that they're going for, and I do think it's kind of cool how the midsection of the combined mode body unfurls to create this kind of sloped horned nose for the vehicle mode. If you look closely, it is kind of a mess with like the fists right up here. There's the gaps back here. You can still see like the eye for the Triceratops face from certain angles, and again, it is kind of messy, but like I kind of appreciate how they so drastically shifted the shape of that lower body into a really weird looking Triceratops tank car. The little guy, he both looks cooler and looks not as cool as the original. The big improvement that this guy has over the original is he can actually stand because his feet are flat. He doesn't have knuckles sticking out from the soles of his feet, so that's great. I also do like the weapon functionality that they've got going here, because I wasn't really fond of the way they did the weapon for the original version, where it was just a giant lance that would peg over the arm, and then it would turn into this really awkward looking pistol thing for the combined mode. Here you've got more choices, and I kind of like the big, unnecessarily gigantic, really, pistol that they have set aside for just this particular mode. And I think the integration is pretty good here. The paint on this guy is actually really nice. You've got silver and black even on the backs of everything, like the shoulders, the backs of the shins and stuff. There's a lot of detail here, and like these nifty gold, black, and red detailings on like what are the fronts of the shoulders, but like also the sides of the knees, and so much going on in the waist and everything. Like there is so much color separation going on in here. I love like the silver, the white, the black. Then you got some yellow too, or like not yellow, gold. And like the orange in the chest is also really nice. And like there's so much detail going around the shoulders. This guy is packed with a lot of little details. The only thing that kind of bums me out about this is the head is kind of tiny, which on its own wouldn't be too bad, except because of the nature of the transformation, the hips are really wide. So that, like, I don't have a problem with wide hips. As I've said before, I am down with the thickness, but like when the head is that tiny, it makes the larger hip section stand out even more. And if not that, then the larger hip section makes the head look even tinier. And on top of that, the shins are gigantic, like proportionally just massive. And this is what really, I think, bothers me the most about just the look of this guy, is that he's got kind of like a weird, overly baggy pants kind of look going here, which, to be fair, when you get the articulation involved and get him into a dynamic pose, you're probably not going to notice. But just standing here like this, it's a little bit silly. The head is pretty cool, though. I like the sculpt of the head. There's a lot of nice paint in here. The silver faceplate looks good. Once again, they did like black around the eyes, which makes the eyes stand out. And it's got this nice little head crest going up the top. It's a nice shape. It's a neat little design that looks very kind of pointy and angular for good reason, which we will get into eventually. Also, I like that he's got these chest vents. I just think that looks cool. Now, the articulation, articulation on this doesn't exist. It's just a vehicle. It rolls well. And I guess technically if you wanted to, you could wiggle the horns, but like that's it for this. This guy though, he's got a lot of really nice articulation. The head can swivel side to side. You can use the transformation joint, swivel side to side. You can use the transformation joint to look down if you want, but there's actually a separate hinge in here so you can look up quite a ways. So you can get some pretty decent angles for the head there. No side-to-side tilt, unfortunately. The shoulders can go all the way around. They can go out on this joint, but then there's this other joint, if you get this flap out of the way, that lets you bring the arm out even further. So you could leave the shoulders down like this. I prefer to have them up one click because I just think it looks more dynamic, but like you can get the arms out pretty far. You also get the bicep swivel, as you saw. The elbows bend to 90 and slightly under 90 going backwards, but you can do it. And despite how this thing transforms, despite the fact that the wrists, the whole fist like unclips from the forearm and swings in for the transformation, despite that, you do actually get a soft ratcheted wrist rotation, which is pretty wild. And that is not impacted at all by the gun. It's not even impacted by the lance, actually. You can, because it's like in front of the joint, you can rotate the fist with the lance in place, and you don't have to worry about that either. So that's cool. You're not getting any waist articulation, but considering he's got a entire other robot head in his upper body, like his entire torso, I think that's fine. The side skirts can move out of the way. They're kind of stiff, and considering they're made out of clear plastic, that's a little bit concerning. Maybe I should go in and soften that, like lube up that joint a little bit. I don't know. But then you've also got the front skirts that can move. They weirdly want to move together, but they can move independently. And so the legs can move forward that far, can move back that far, can move out way past 90. You've got clicky thigh rotation, and then the knees can bend in over 90. It's a little awkward with the knee placement, but that's kind of how it has to be because of the transformation, the way all this stuff works. So like I get it, but like it sits a little weird. And then for the ankles, you can get this flap out of the way. And the ankles, basically you can move the foot forward. You can't really move back, but you can point the toe. You can't point the toe up though. But you do also get ankle tilt and rotation because it's just a big old ball joint down there. So yeah, the articulation on this guy, pretty nice. And yes, in case you're curious, because you probably are, and I neglected to mention it, you can give him his, actually I think it's supposed to be this one because of where the peg sits and this like flap in the thumb and everything. But yeah, you can give him his little backpack pistols can go into his hand, and you can use those instead, though I kind of think the giant, like obscenely huge revolver is more funny. It's cool, it's fun to mess with. It just kind of bums me out that this is a car now and not a Triceratops that he can ride. So that's a shame. Now, as is no doubt expected, these guys are... let's bring this thing into, why not? These guys are bigger than their original counterparts. Not minus this guy because he didn't have an original counterpart. Here they are with Tobuffy Wild Chief and Nova Prime, and yeah, even the little core guy is much bigger than your average deluxe. Probably closer to like leader height as just a standalone figure, which is pretty cool. Here they are with Black Hook, and Black Hook is actually only a little bit taller than the core robot. Can I fold those wings in a little bit better? There we go. Yeah, he's only a little bit taller. I mean, well, more than a little, but like, if you look at the head, not the shoulders, he's only about a head taller, which, considering everything, that's kind of cool. And here's everyone with Rex Kaiser, so you can see how, because Rex Kaiser was about the full height of Triga on his own, so yeah, that's how this all kind of breaks down. So this recording is almost an hour long, and I wish this is where I could say it's time to stop, but we're not actually done yet. When I said I'm disappointed that this is not a Triceratops that the core figure can ride anymore, I was being truthful. However, he can ride this. It's just not a Triceratops. So, what we do for that is actually going to require some extra transformation steps. So we want to unpeg this and take this entire chunk off. This panel, you want to make sure to unhook the bottom here. You don't have to take the whole panel off, but you do want to unhook those knees. And you also want to, well, we'll take this off just because it's easier, so take this off for now. You want to take these panels and fold them out. You want to, basically, you just want to unpeg them from the hip skirts. That is a little bit tough. Like, it's just difficult to get, and like, this is flexi plastic. I found the easiest way to do this is to get the front skirts out of the way and push the big chunky peg there. Just push that. Brace this and then push, and that makes it a little bit easier to get this out without needing to use any kind of spudger. Because when I first got this guy, oh, you better believe I was using a spudger. But anyway, this can come out, and again, just brace and push, and then unpeg. And now that that's unpegged, find a good angle. There we go. Yep, this whole thing extends out. And once it's extended out, these fold back in, and these oblong pegs now go into the thighs. So they peg into a completely different spot. This piece comes back and just pegs into the same spot, though it's not. These two little tabs aren't going to do anything now, but this still pegs in up there. And the big difference with what's going on up here is you want to take these front skirts and flip them straight up. Then I'm going to take the Triceratops head, and you've got this kind of U-shaped clip with a peg in the center, and there's this peg hole right here. You want to clip this into this spot here. And that will not work if these panels are not folded up, so make sure you do that. But then these can go back up, and now this is happening. You want to take the fists, fold the horns back in, fold or rotate these back around, pop these apart, and now instead of like this, they're going to swap positions, and you want this panel facing in because there's a big tab slot on the back of the foot that this big chunky tab right in front of the eye will peg into. And also, while you're doing this, you can rotate the fist so that the back of the fist is facing outward, because that just hides it a little better. And again, this can peg in here. There we go. And last thing for this is little handles in here that fold down on either side, like so. Now for this guy, we're just going to take the pistol out of his hand, take the lance off of his hand, and then peg this in here and peg this in here. I find that it actually works better to peg this in here because there's this big chunky flap on like right here that kind of bangs into this hinge if you peg it in on this side. If you do it on the other side, it has a little bit more space. So that's why I prefer to peg the pistol thing into that side. And the peg is only on the one side, so this side's going to be pointing outward regardless of where you peg it in. But yeah, that's how I do that. And then this, just peg in there. And now for this guy, it's very simple. You just straighten out the legs, give the knees a single click, bring the elbows in and rotate the fists so that they're kind of, the palms are pointed down, and use that hinge in the head so he's looking forward. And now all of this will rest in here. The legs will actually go into these very specific leg-shaped holes, and it all just slides straight down and in. And you know you got it right when you see these tabs go into this little cavity in the red bits here. There is actually a spot like specifically shaped for them. And then you can bring the arms down and adjust the elbows and shoulders as needed. Bring all that in so that he is gripping the handlebars, we'll call them. And finally, you actually lock him in place by bringing these red panels in and pegging them into the back here. And that locks his legs down and gives you this weird thing. This is weird. I like it, but it's weird. And the problem that I have with this is like it kind of like it. I don't think it looks bad. I just think it's a step down from the original figure because I really liked having this guy riding a Triceratops. Here, it's more like he's nestled into a Tron cycle that has a Triceratops figurehead. It's fine. I think it's neat that they that they did this in the first place because they didn't have to. They could have just had it be like, the figure in the Triceratops truck tank car thing, and that would be it. But, they did extra. They went the extra mile, and I think that's cool. I like that it can do this. I just think it would have been even neater if it was a proper, like, Triceratops that he rode rather than a Triceratops bobsled motorcycle thing. Not that this isn't cool, just, my preference would have been the other thing. And you can actually incorporate this thing into this. You want to straighten everything out, bring the head back, curl up the toes as usual, and with all of this, I'll bring the wings up just so that they're out of my way. With all of this done, all you have to do is there are these two big slots back here and two chunky tabs on the chest section of the Pteranodon, and these just peg in there, and that's it. They just peg in, bring these back down, and then you can bring the wings down, and it's this. And again, I feel like this just isn't necessary. It doesn't add anything, really. It's just kind of there. I mean, I guess you could imagine that he's like flying around like this. I don't really see the point, but at least this thing has a place to go in this mode, so you can keep all of the bits together. I do appreciate that. But yeah, I'm just not really into this. Everything else, though, even though I think it's a very, very small step backwards to have him riding a motorcycle-type vehicle thing instead of an actual Triceratops, still very cool. Still incredibly cool. Okay, quick thing, gonna show attaching the forearms here, and I want to say I would recommend attaching the forearms to the to all of this before you attempt to attach the upper body to the lower body, and before you put the little blaster things on the backs of the shoulders, because it's just easier that way. And these, you just get the correct forearm for the correct shoulder, and you want to peg them in, but again, you kind of want to rock them around, and you want to not go this way because that'll just end up pushing that joint back in. So kind of come at it from an angle and push and wiggle, and it is so difficult to do, but as you saw, it does go eventually. It's just that, like I said, my one real gripe about all of this is I really wish that this was not as difficult, but there you go. Okay, and also, I want to make sure I get this, show this. So when you want to plug all of this back in, first thing, you want to kind of look out for these tabs on the backs of the fists, and again, you get them kind of settled in there. So what I end up doing is I brace the arms with my fingers and kind of come in from front to back and then slide things down, and I'm still holding those forearms in place because I don't want them to get pushed out of whack. And then you just kind of push down, and this will clip in here, and then there's a peg hole that this will go into. And it is a little tricky to line up, but you'll feel it kind of go in, and then you just push down, and that will all come together. And these legs can come down, and the tabs up there, which you kind of saw, there's the tab right in there, will go into that slot to ideally keep these from wiggling around too much when you're rotating those shoulders. I swear one of these days I'll record a video that's not over an hour of raw footage again, but today is not one of those days. Anyway, that is it for Miniforce, Dinoid, Triga, the Legacy version. Oh, also, I forgot to show this off before, but the mouth for the Triceratops does actually open. So that does open. I forgot to show that. But yeah, what do you all think of this set? Because it is supremely cool. But whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you everybody for watching, and I've got no idea what the next video is going to be. I'll probably end up revisiting something I looked at in the past for like a slightly more updated take on it. We'll see, because at this point I absolutely do not have anything new in the pipeline. So we'll see what I come up with.